Hey, let's go to Ecclesiastes 6. Ecclesiastes 6. We were doing so well at the end of 5, right? Right? It ended so well, right? Y'all look at it. Look at it with me real quick. The end of 5, if you need to get your text out or flip the page over. What was so good? Verse 19. Talk to me, Josh. What does it say? Amen. We should just end the book right there, right? This is good. It's a gift of God. It's all a gift of God. And God literally distracts us from the bad times so that we can enjoy the moment, all right? And then he goes into 6, doesn't he? He goes to 6, and what's he start off with? What? Here's an evil, all right? Back into the grinder, all right? We're back into this thing. Here's a tragedy. The Holman translated is here's a tragedy. It's the Hebrew word ra, all right, and the Greek word poneros, all right, which means evil in both cases. This is an evil thing that I have observed, all right? Again, what's the perspective of the author? The author's writing this from what, let's say this, not perspective, vantage point. What's the vantage point of supposedly Solomon, yeah? Up high, kind of looking down on everybody and evaluating what does it say over and over and over? I observed this. I saw this. This is what I see. This is an evil thing. So he's put himself in a position of observing and evaluating or critiquing, all right? That's basically Ecclesiastes. Here is a tragedy I have observed where? Under the sun. Under the sun as opposed to what? Under heaven, okay? Under the sun is very secular, trivial, momentary, all right, temporal kind of things. Under heaven is more in the grand scheme of things, okay? Which we get more of in Ecclesiastes. Which one have we seen the most? Under the sun, yeah, it's like 10 to 1, all right? So we see this over and over. I have observed this tragedy or this evil under the sun. And here's a crazy translation. And it weighs heavily on humanity. Okay? Now, some of you have a very different translation for that, don't you? What is it? Megan, what do you have? Yeah, weighs heavily and common. Are those the same thing? Huh? No. Anybody have 1 Corinthians 10:13 in their head? No temptation. What's the part you left out? That's what I was looking for. Yeah, that's the Message version of it. There it is. No temptation, but it's all common to man. Okay, that's this phrase right here. That's almost literally this phrase right here. So when the Holman translated is weighs heavily, remember what I've said a couple of times? That the Holman kind of jumps ahead and explains what the author is trying to say instead of just letting the author say what he's saying. Okay, that's what they're doing. Because it is common to man, they're making the jump to, and therefore it weighs heavily upon man. Everybody with me on this? Again, I wish the Holman and the CSB would just leave it literal so that we could just get the poetic nature of it. But this is the idea. It be much on, literally is the Greek translation. Okay, pretty much same in the Hebrew, but it's common, it's normal. This is what happens. All right, it weighs heavily on humanity. It is common. Many people experience this. You see all the different ways you can translate this. Okay, and that's why I compared it to that 1 Corinthians 10:13 because I wanted you to see how that kind of works out. All right, 2. God gives, and here's the tragedy. God gives a man riches, wealth, and honor. Anybody have different words than those 3? Riches, wealth, honor. Possessions, good. That's a better translation of the Greek word here. Riches is Plutos, the rich young ruler. Plutos, all right? Wealth possessions, same idea. Okay, so there's riches, which almost means literally money. All right, and then wealth is an abundance of possessions. This third word is the key that I want you to kind of sit on a little bit. The Holman is honor. Anybody different? The Greek word here is more the idea of glory. It gives him glory, and that would be relative glory, glory in the sight of men. All right. So Shane is highly exalted when he walks into work, right? Because he has great glory, all right? And they walk in and they go, oh, that's Shane. Shane, he's the manager, all right? So that is that idea of glory relative to Court, who walks into Big Jake's and go, didn't that guy used to work here? He was like worked at the cash register and did the drive-through window. No glory, right? None whatsoever. But Shane, see the difference? Okay. The Hebrew word for this is kabod, all right? This is in the fifth command, which starts with what? Honor your father and mother, all right? This honor is the word to give great weight to, all right? So God gives a man riches, almost like dollars, possessions, wealth, and he gives him glory. Now, is that something you can buy? Not easily, all right? It's something you kind of earn. Okay, it's weight. So again, when Shane walks into Big Jake's and he says, go clean out this, they do that, right, Shane? All the time. Just snap to it, all right? Why? Because Shane's words have weight, all right? The guy who's been working there a week tells somebody else to go do something, and what happens? Now, who are you, all right? And you've all experienced this in work, right? You've all been the guy who has no weight, and some of you have experienced, I do have weight around here, all right? This is this idea of kabod, all right? So God gives this to men, all right? God gives this, all right? And I like the idea, it doesn't say people earn this. God gives it to them. So that, effective clause, so that he, this person, and it literally means his soul. You may have that in the text. It's the word nephesh in the Hebrew and suke in the Greek. His soul lacks nothing, all right? All have sinned and fallen short of the glory, all right? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, be in lack, okay? So that his soul lacks nothing of all he desires for himself. That's a good life, right? God gives you riches, wealth, honor, glory, weight, so that his soul lacks nothing of all he desires for himself. But, there it is, Megan. But God does not allow him to eat it. All right, now your translation doesn't say eat, does it? It says enjoy. Yours says eat. All right, that's the literal translation. All right, yeah, it's the word for eat. All right. God doesn't, and in fact, it says God does not give him the authority, the exousia in the Hebrew, in the Greek, the authority to eat this. How cruel is this? What if I go to you and I say, here's riches, wealth, and honor, so that your soul lacks nothing that you desire, and you can't enjoy it? I'm not going to allow you, give you the authority to go ahead and take possession of it and enjoy it. Right. Yeah, because the fear of God will give you wisdom. Will riches, wealth, and honor give you wisdom? Yeah. It's deceptive, isn't it? Is there ever a time when God goes, the pursuit of your life should be riches, should be your possessions, and it should be to have great weight and honor amongst humanity? No, these are good things, right? My soul desires these things, all right? So I lack none of these things, but God says, I'm not going to give you the authority to enjoy them, literally to eat of them. To eat of these things. Why? Because God knows what will happen if that becomes your focus. If God gives you all of these things and allows you to enjoy them, What happens to your prayer life? Yeah. You don't have time for him? All right. What do you do? What happens to your prayer life when you're lacking? Up or down? Increase or decrease? I'm lacking something. It increases, doesn't it? You're lacking health. Dale, your prayer life changed much in the last 3 weeks? Tracy, your prayer life's changed a lot, hasn't it? All right? And if God just continues to give us all this stuff and allows us to enjoy it, what happens to our relationship with him? What should it do? It should result in what? Thank you, appreciation, gratitude. It should accelerate it, right? But what does it do in humanity? Rich young ruler. Jesus says, come follow me. Nah, I'm good. And all the disciples are like, I wish I was rich. And they're like, yeah, he isn't following me and you are. How's this going to work out at the end of the day? Keep going with the text because watch the contrast here. So God gives this man, the follower, instead, all right, so I'm not allowed to, God doesn't give me the authority to eat it or enjoy it. Instead, a stranger, and this is more probably the idea of stranger just sounds like somebody you don't know. This is a foreigner, okay? Now, in the Jewish mindset, foreigner and not foreigner, is this a big deal? Yeah, huge, all right? Go watch Fiddler on the Roof, right? Tradition, all right? You just don't cross that line, okay? So a foreigner, one not of the covenant, will enjoy them, right? Now, it doesn't say God gives them these things. They just get them, and God lets them have it, right? And Solomon goes, this is futile, and it's a sickening tragedy. It's a phrase he's used in 5, like twice, and he's using it one more time here. It's not just a tragedy. It's not just evil. It's sickening. You know the difference, right? You've physically felt the difference when something is sickening to you, all right? Why is this? And what happened? Has God ever not allowed you to enjoy something and then your neighbor who's never been to church a day in their life gets the same thing and you're like, God, what's the deal? I serve you, I do this, I do all this stuff for you, and he gets this and I don't. I mean, how many times in Psalms do we get that same theme over and over and over, all right? What's God doing? God's protecting us. But how often do we see it that way? How often do we see it? Well, this is just futile. Why am I even serving you if I can't get all the stuff? All right? You may know what Matthew 6:33 says? But seek ye first, what? The kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to you. How many people do the seeking so that all these things will be added to them? What I did, first time this kind of reality hit me, I went in my Bible and I crossed out, and all these things will be added to you. So my version just read, but seek ye first the kingdom of God, period. Because I knew my heart well enough to know I was seeking God so that all these things would be added to me. And I don't think Solomon sees it right off, because I think he just sees the face value of it. He sees the evil of all this and not the eventual good of it, okay? Good. So 3. There should be an if in there, but that's okay. If a man may father 100 children. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Yeah, in our culture, yeah. You fathered 100 children? Okay, in the first, 1,000 years before Christ is born, is that a good thing or a bad thing? What does Proverbs say about children? Children are a blessing. They are arrows in your quiver. All right, is it good to have 1,000 arrows? Yes. Okay. So when Solomon writes this, a man may father 100 children, all right? Now he's got a lot of a lot of paternity payments to make, okay? But in this case, I mean, when you have 700 wives and 300 concubines and you father 1,000 children, that's a good thing. God's made you very fruitful, shall we say, all right? And he lives many years. Is a long life, is that a good thing or a bad thing? So what's Solomon saying? If a man fathers 100 children and lives many years, what is it saying? That's good. That's good. You're living a good life, all right? No matter how long he lives, if his soul is not satisfied by good things and he does not even have a proper burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. So even if you father 1,000, or it was 100 children, and you live many years, no matter how long he lives, it doesn't matter how long you live, it doesn't matter how many children you have, all right? If his soul, we're going to keep coming back to this idea of the soul being satisfied is over and over in here. And so really you need to consider what satisfies my soul, all right? And that inner being, what satisfies it? Is it riches, wealth, and honor? Is that going to really satisfy my soul at the end of the day? Look at Hollywood. Those should be the happiest people in the world, right? Because they have riches, they have possessions, and they have weight, they have honor. But is their soul satisfied? No, because that's not what's going to satisfy you. So if his soul is not satisfied by good things, riches, wealth, honor, good things? Can be. Is that the extent of good things? No, it's not going to satisfy. There's a fullness to this life. And he doesn't have a proper burial. What's the importance of having a proper burial? Anybody plot out their burial, their whole funeral, all that good stuff? Megan, you've already done that? You're like 20 years old. Is it really? Wow. Glenna, you've already scripted yours out? You're good to go? Planned it all out. Wow. That's planning ahead. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. So, Tiffany, you? No, okay. I thought you raised your hand. Yeah, you're worried about Spirit Week costume tomorrow. So, funeral, proper burial. Not even thinking about it. Ashley and I don't even have a will. All right, and we never have. All right, so it's like we're not. I've got life insurance, but I've told y'all the kids are plotting to kill me before I turn 80 because I have term insurance. It ends at 80. All right, but this idea of having a proper burial. If you go through all the kings in mostly the kings half the kings in Israel got murdered and thrown in the ditch. All right, most of the kings of Judah died and were rested with their fathers in the city of David. That's kind of the line. And then you get a couple of them in there that they rested in their own tomb or they rested in their own garden, something like that. There was one, it's Jehoram. He was the one that was married to Athaliah. You remember her, the one that scary witch lady? The last thing it said about him, he died to no one's regret and was buried in the city of David, but not in the tombs of the kings. Right? And that's the only one that gets that sort of, we killed him off, we got rid of him, but we kind of put him in that place way over there, not amongst others. So to have a proper burial was huge, all right? That was a great honor. So no matter how long you live, and you don't have, and your soul is not satisfied, and you don't get a proper burial, a stillborn child is better than he. All right? Now, he's going to explain what he means by this. What happens with a stillborn child in 4? For he comes. Now, here's an interesting thing. This word he, all right, is it talking about the stillborn child, or is it talking about the man who finds no satisfaction in these good things? I think it can go either way. Yeah, watch it and kind of think, is he talking about the stillborn child right here, or is he talking about the one who can't find satisfaction? And I would say, yeah. What? Yeah, it could be. That's what I'm saying. It's an interesting thing when you can apply both of these to it, and I think both of them apply in the long run. Even though this man's fathered 100 children, he's lived all these years and had all this stuff, but, all right? So for he or it, whichever one you want to roll with, comes in futility. That's our futile word, all right? Hebel, and walks in darkness. It's a word for walks, okay? And walks in darkness. That's a bad thing, right? You come in futility, you walk in darkness, right? And his name is shrouded. Now, it may continue shrouded in darkness. That's inserted. That's not in the text. So, and his name is shrouded or covered. What does that mean, for your name to be covered? When were Hebrew children given their name? Not day 7, day 8, okay? The David's son that dies in his place does not live to the 8th day. So he never receives a name. All right, that's why I always say the son of David, the one who never got a name, is the one who died in your place. Solomon is the one with great wealth and extravagance and all of this stuff. And that son of David is the one who will reign forever and ever, this sort of heavenly kingdom son of David. The unnamed son of David is the one who died in place, substitutionary atonement. So you go, which was Jesus? Yes, he was the unnamed son, and he's going to be Solomon. Just two different cool things there. All right? But this idea of your name being shrouded, how important was your name? Early culture. What if you died with no name? Or what if no one remembered your name? One of my favorite lines in any movie, Troy. Y'all like the movie Troy? Anyone? Tyler, you a Troy guy? All right. This kid comes to get, all right, who's the wrestler in the movie? I forget. Stone Cold Steve Austin is in there. He's like this massive warrior guy, and Brad Pitt is the Achilles character, and they're supposed to match up, champion against champion, sort of David and Goliath kind of a thing, the way they used to fight wars. And this guy, massive wrestler, gets out there, and then they go, Achilles, where are you? You got to take him on. And Achilles is back and asleep in his tent. They send some little kid. He goes, this little kid gets Achilles because he's the great warrior of the Greeks. And the kid's like, I wouldn't want to fight that guy. He's the biggest man I've ever seen. And Achilles, the Achilles character, looks at him and just says, that's why no one will ever know your name. Your name will be shrouded because you don't have courage. You don't want to fight. And it's just such an awesome line right there. Everybody's going to know my name because I have the courage to go fight. And no one will ever know your name because you're a coward, because you wouldn't want to go fight that guy. All right? And this is what he's saying. This goes into our walks in darkness. Name is shrouded. Who's he talking about? The stillborn child? Or the man whose soul is not satisfied by good things and doesn't receive a proper burial? In the grand scheme of things, which is it? All right? 5, though a stillborn child, and that's not in the text, it's just implied because it's there. Though a stillborn child does not see the sun and is not conscious, it has more rest than he. Agree? Yeah. The stillborn child never has any drama, never has any evil, never has any of this. But the man does. Even though he receives riches and wealth and honor, if his soul is not satisfied in them, he has no rest. 6, and if he lives 1,000 years twice, it's an interesting way of saying that. If he lives 1,000 years twice, but does not experience or see happiness or good, do not both go to the same place? The man who has all this and the one who is stillborn, they go to the same place. And it's interesting that Solomon writes this 1,000 years before Christ, because what's the great hope of humanity after they die? There really isn't any. You just go into the pit, or you go into the depths, and there was no clear understanding of well, you go to heaven when you die because Jesus is going to die in your place and you'll be forgiven, and so you can spend eternity with God in heaven. There was no concept of that. It was just kind of when you die, and we're not sure what happens after that. And Solomon kind of repeats this because he's saying there's really no hope. There might be, but there's really no assured hope there. 7, little change of direction here. All man's labor, this is our word for struggle, all right, the struggling of life. All man's struggles is for his stomach. Yet use the word appetite, but it's the word for soul, is never satisfied. Again, we come back to this word again, satisfied. So what do you think? All man's labor is for his stomach, yet his soul is never satisfied. How many of you live paycheck to paycheck? It's a fun life, isn't it? Literally, your life is, all your labor is so you don't starve to death or freeze to death or whatever, exposure. So, man, you're just living and paying bills, and hoping the month comes to an end before the money does, all right? And Solomon watches all this. And his vantage point, is he living paycheck to paycheck? No, but he's watching them. All man's labor is for his stomach. He's like, man, that's all they do. They work, and they never get ahead. They never change anything. They never get rich, all right? Yet the soul is never satisfied. It's never satisfied. It's never enough. It's this whole sort of futile way of life. What's really the point? If all you're doing is working so you can eat, so you can go to work so you can eat, so you can go to work so you can eat, all right? 8, what advantage or what overflow, this in the Greek it's more the idea of overflow, it's parasuo, it to overflow, then does the wise man have over the fool? Because the wise man goes to work so that he can eat, and the foolish man goes to work so he can eat. Don't see, he was doing so well at the end of 5. And now he went right back. I don't know what happened to him that day. Somebody burnt his toast or something. I don't know. He's just having a bad day. So he gets right back into this. What advantage does the wise have over the fool? He uses another analogy. What advantage is there for the poor person who knows how to conduct or to walk before others? Now, that's an interesting little phrase there because he's talking about the poor person. Is the poor person supposed to know how to conduct himself? Is he supposed to know right and wrong, know how to behave, know which fork to use at the fancy dinner? No. He's not supposed to know that. So the comparison, the wise to the fool, is the same as the poor to the one who knows how to conduct himself. The one who's been raised in a regal manner with good, what was it Holland did for that cotillion thing? Did she do that cotillion thing? Yeah, that was not my baby girl though. I've never thought anything that was more awkward than Holland did this cotillion thing. Yeah, I mean it was just funny to see that because that's just not her. But it was, the poor person. What advantage of the poor person that knows how to behave, knows how to pick out the right fork? What good is that? What value is that? He's never going to go to the country club. He's never going to be rich. He's never going to be wealthy. So what value is it? All right? And again, it's this futility thing that Solomon sees, and he's just so frustrated by it. Verse 9, better what the eyes see than wandering or walking soul. What do you think? Better what the eyes can see than what the soul wanders around looking for. That's a pretty pessimistic viewpoint, isn't it? What I have is what I have. Was it better one in the hand and 2 in the bush? All right? Or better, you know what? I have this. I could go look for something better. I could go seek out something better, seek out a better way of life. Or I could just stay here. my baby girl, she decided, I'm going to go wander up to New York City and go to Fashion Institute of Technology and get my degree in fashion photography instead of staying here and working at J.C. Penney taking family portraits. But Solomon would say what? Better what the eyes see than the wandering. Agree or disagree? What's the danger in wandering? What's the danger in wandering desire or wandering soul? What do they call them? What kind of artists? Starving artists. That's a bad thing, right? To starve? Yeah. Is he being pessimistic? How do you want to live your life? Well, you know what? This is right in front of me. This is probably the best it's going to get. I could take a risk. I could take a chance. But, you know, it's better just to go with what I have right in front of me than what might happen. And I think Solomon's like getting pessimistic on us here, all right? This too is futile and a pursuit of the wind. Which? Just taking what the eyes see or wandering, having a wandering soul? Which is futile and a pursuit of the wind? So what do you do? Oh, don't give me the Sunday school answer, Jamie. You know I'm not going to let you get away with that. Leave it in God's hands. Sounding all spiritual over here. It is futile. See? He says it's futile. And I think it can be. And again, Solomon's not prescribing do this and don't do this. He's looking at this vantage point. He sees people chasing their dreams and crashing and burning, and he sees them just here's what's right in front of me, and I'll take this. And he goes, futile, futile. They're not happy because they don't have those dreams, and they're not happy because they don't have what was right in front of them. And no one's bursting out of this cycle of, you know what, just get up, eat, drink, and enjoy the life that God's given you. He sees that cycle as being futile, all right? 10, whatever exists, all right, or whatever has become, was given its name long ago. And it is known what man is, all right? Whatever exists or whatever became was given its name long ago. Translate that into sort of common language. Whatever exists or has become was given its name long ago. What's he saying? Anybody ever invent something new? Anybody ever come up with a new word, a new phrase, a new way of thinking? I remember I was doing all this eschatology study and trying to figure out what I really believe about end times, and I'm going through all these studies and just trying to do it on my own, just looking at the scriptures, looking at the text, and I came up with this idea that it's the idea of the wrath of God. We are not appointed to wrath, and wrath comes, and so if I'm not appointed to wrath, then God's got to come before he pours out his wrath on humanity. So I'm like, okay, there's the second coming of Christ. That's the return of Christ to rapture us out before the wrath. And I'm like, explain this to one guy, a friend of mine in the ministry. I'm like, okay, so here's my idea. Instead of it being before the tribulation, all right, because the tribulation is not wrath, all right? There is wrath, but it comes later after the tribulation. And I'm explaining this to this guy, and I'm like, it's not pre-tribulation, it's before the wrath comes. And he goes, oh, you're pre-wrath. I'm like, is that what it's called? He's like, yeah, it's been around since like 1970. I'm like, oh man, I was so disappointed. I thought I had burst through all of the theological studies of the world, and I discovered it, and it was like, no. Whatever it becomes was given its name long ago. You're not the first one to understand this. You're not bursting forth, all right? Now, you get some outliers. I mean, Facebook comes along. Did we ever have anything like Facebook? I mean, we remember, Catherine, we remember when the internet came out. All right? I want to say all of us, except Megan and Dylan, y'all are the exceptions, I think, in the room. The rest of us grew up all the way through school, no internet, no computers. Not all of us. We're senior year. I remember first time I got on the internet was right after I graduated from seminary. I was like, this would have been really helpful. So instead of going to the library and going through the microfilm thing, y'all are kind of young. Y'all are kind of on the edge right there. So I'll give it to y'all. All right. Whatever exists or whatever has become was given its name long ago. Translation: you're not coming up with anything new. It's futile. Your invention is futile because it's already been known. We're just coming back around. It's known to man. But he is not able to contend. He doesn't have the ability to judge the one who is stronger than he. Now, most of your translations probably capitalize one, right? No? Okay. One, it's speaking to the idea of God, okay? So, but God, man is not able, dunatos, doesn't have the ability to contend or to judge the one stronger than he. For when there are many words, they increase futility. The more words, the more futility. Agree? All right, generally speaking. The more you talk, does that make it better? No, not really. Because it is what it is. I don't care how much you talk about it, all right? For what is the advantage for man? Again, that same question, wise, fool, poor, that conducts himself. 12. Like these don't really clear up a lot of things, these last couple of phrases, so they're kind of odd things. For who knows what is good for man in life, in the few days of his futile life that he spends like a shadow? What's a shadow? What's the value of a shadow? How quickly does it go away? When the cloud comes over, what happens to the shadow? It's gone. And what good does the shadow do? It has no value whatsoever. So who knows what is good for man in life in the few days? That's bad, right? If you only have a few days, as opposed to a long life. Long life is good, right? Few days is bad, okay? Of his futile life, right? All of you, your life is futile, all right? That he spends, or that he does or makes like a shadow. A meaningless thing. I'm telling you, somebody burned his toast, put too much milk in his oatmeal. I don't know what happened to him this morning. Who can tell man what will happen after him? Where? Under the sun. Again, what's he focusing on? Is he focusing on the things that are under heaven? In the vantage point of God, or is he having the vantage point of humanity? So he looks at all this. And again, like I said, he's having a bad day. He ended 5 really well. He was on track. Something happened to him here in 6. And I think it's almost a selfish thing, because he starts off how? God gives us all this stuff and then goes, oh, no, you can't play with that because I know what's best for you. He's like, well, that's not fair, all right? He's kind of got a little bit of a preschooler in him right here. And it continues through all this stuff because if he's not satisfied, it's better that he's a stillborn child. Seriously? All right? All my labor is just for my stomach. My soul is never satisfied. There's no advantage. Wise, fool, poor, knows how to conduct himself. Better what my eyes see, just what's in front of me. Just shut up and eat your oatmeal. Don't even try and go to the Shoney's buffet, right? Don't go try and find a Shoney's. All right, Shoney's. That's old school, isn't it? And we used to love hitting Shoney's after a Friday night football game. We would wreck that place after an away football game. Yeah, it's just eat your oatmeal. It's better, all right? If you even invent something, it's already been named. We've already called it a name. There's no reason to do anything. More of the words, more of the futility, all right? There's no advantage, all right? And who knows what is good for man in the few days of his futile life that he spends in the shadow? Because nobody knows what's going to happen after him. See, we're right back in the gutter, all right? And he does this to us, and it bothers me. He's an overthinker. Yeah. You are bad. You are bad. No, baby, just you. Just you. You're the overthinker. Hold on. Josh, what are you saying? He's read Job and goes, that didn't end well for Job. I'm not going to go there. Okay, but here's my question to you on that. Is Solomon complaining about his life, or is he complaining about their life? Hey. Okay, so but is Solomon talking about himself? Or is he talking about the entirety of all other humans, excluding himself because he's up in the ivory tower and it doesn't really affect him? It's just, I look and I see this is so futile for all these people. And I feel so sorry for them. What are you saying, Jessica? He's offended for all the other people? So he's yelling at God on behalf of all the people. And that's why he's writing Ecclesiastes. All right. Somebody else was talking. Ashley, you were probably. Yeah. Well, and he's already said, I gave myself all the pleasure I could find, and what did it turn out to be? It was all futile. The thousand children or 100 children. Yeah. Yeah, I've never put that together. The wisest man in the world had 1,000 wives. That makes no sense to me, all right? One's too many for me, so. Oh my goodness, that would be trouble right there. Continue to ponder the vantage point, okay? Because I think that's the source. And don't get into the weeds with Solomon. And here's what I want you to do as we continue on. I want you to have a vantage point of Solomon's vantage point, of the vantage point that he sees on the people. Does that make sense? I want you to step back on the mountaintop, looking down at Solomon, complaining about the people in the city. And you to step back and go, is that true? Is it really as bad as Solomon says? Or is he just not seeing the full picture? Which, born 1,000 years before Christ, is that going to change anything? His lifestyle is just sort of a be nice and maybe God will like you. And he doesn't have this interaction. When does Solomon ever have any interaction with God? Think about it. In the beginning, when God comes to him and says what? What do you want? Which I love. That's an awesome question. What if God came to you and goes, what do you want? I'll give it to you. When else? At the dedication of the temple, he comes to him. Besides that, he really has no interaction with God on a conversational level, right? So what's his experience and knowledge of God? It's very limited, all right? It's extremely limited, okay? So like I said, I want you to have the vantage point of looking down at Solomon as he's looking down at everybody else and start to think, is he evaluating this well? and you go, you know what, that was good, but here he's being kind of whiny. Okay? So just so you keep engaged in what's going on with the text. Okay? Good? Any other questions, thoughts, opinions, snide remarks? Seeing none, let's pray. Father, I thank you for Solomon's experience and just the fact he gets a little frustrated with you, and the fact that he writes it down, and that you are secure enough in who you are that you put it into your scriptures. Father, I thank you that you allow us to complain, you allow us to whine, you allow us to step back and just ponder all your ways. And we are so unable to judge the one who is so much stronger than us. So, Father, may we be honest, but may we be humble in our interactions with you. May we understand that you are good and that you bring everything together for good. And may that increase our faith. May that drive us to your throne. May that increase our prayer life, even in the midst of gratitude and suffering, that we would be always drawn to you and before your King. So I pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.